Ted Millows, Head of Learning and Resourcing at Highways England, Vicky Worthington, Head of HR at Highways at Kier, Liz Garvey, HR Director at FM Conway, and Karen Wright, Learning and Development Manager at Hansom. Please give them a warm welcome. Now we're going to hear from each of you in turn, and we'll have a quick chat afterwards. So Ted, you'd like to kick us off?
Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk about investing in talent, and like Rebecca said, I'm not going to focus on the problem or the size of the problem. We've heard about that quite a lot over the last 2 days. Actually, I heard about it quite a lot over the last 2 days last year, and I'm sure it's probably spoken about the year before. And I hear about it quite a lot in a lot of forums. So I share that kind of frustration that we're still talking about the problem. What's been really nice, though, over the last 2 days is hearing lots of examples of people talking about what they're doing individually about it for their organisations. And I share some of the sentiment that Rebecca left us with about trying to join that up. So what I'm going to focus on is talking about our approach to talent management and investing in talent, and hopefully leaving a couple of points for people to think about for themselves and their own organisations, and share a little bit of the learning that we've had as we're working through improving what we do as Highways England. I guess the first point for me is that actually this sector is really exciting. There's huge amounts of investment, there's really exciting projects, there are great career opportunities, huge amounts of challenges that need to be overcome. So it's a real career destination for people, actually, if they want to have an exciting, challenging part of their career. This sector should be really attractive. And that's a frustration because we're not shouting enough about that. We're not making enough of the attractive elements of the sector. We're talking ourselves down a lot. So I think there's a need to really focus on getting that message out there about the fact that the investment in the sector and then our investment in our talent is really serious at the moment. I think that needs to be looked at in what's been talked about as a holistic approach. I would just say talent management is every part of your employee life cycle. So we should be looking at all of our employee processes from attraction, recruitment, to development and performance, succession planning, all of those elements, and challenging ourselves to say, are those really helping us attract and then retain the talent that we need in the sector? I think it starts with your early talent pipeline. I've heard a lot about graduates and apprentices over the last 2 days, which is fantastic to see. On screen is one of our graduate and apprentice intakes from last year. So we currently have around 170 graduates and apprentices on schemes in our business, and really see that as the start of the pipeline for our future capability and capacity needs. So it's helping us build new skills, and it's providing the capacity to fill some of the challenges we've got around attrition, around aging workforce, but it's also helping us to change the balance of our diversity. So in our early talent population within Highways England, of that 170 odd, 34% are female, 32% are BAME, and that's significantly different to when you look at our core diversity statistics. It's also significantly different to our industry's diversity statistics and early talent statistics. So we know if we invest heavily in this early talent pipeline, it's helping us change that in future years. You can see one of my team members, Charlotte, on that picture, who will be speaking on the apprenticeship levy in a little bit. So if your organisation is interested in early talent but is struggling to understand how to get the best out of your levy investment, then she'll be speaking later on about that. We've got to attract that talent towards us, which I started by saying. And this slide is not to promote lots and lots of different events in which you can do that, but if we're not out there shouting about it in every single different forum, whether it's talking to young people and inspiring them into STEM careers, getting out and talking to our potential apprentices or graduates, focusing on some of those technical skills where we're really struggling to recruit as an industry, and getting to those forums and careers fairs, or working with all of the available social media channels that we have. Focusing on things like returnships as programs and promoting ourselves, as Rebecca was just talking about, to networks of women who may be out of work currently or in other sectors, and pulling them towards this sector. We've recently run our first returnship program, working with an organisation called Women Returners, and we've brought some fantastic talent into the organisation. And actually, when we looked at how we brought them in, and we looked at our current recruitment processes, we said, if we'd put them through that traditional process, they wouldn't have got through and secured roles. But because we recruited differently, we actually attracted a much wider pool of talent with some significant experience across different sectors that will have really impactful careers with us. The final couple of points I make on attraction are, we've challenged ourselves around inclusive recruitment and looking at our current recruitment practices. And a couple of the speakers this morning referenced this, but we've worked with an inclusive recruitment company to really challenge our current processes and hold the mirror up to ourselves to say, actually, some of these aren't good enough to attract the widest pools of talent. So we've worked with the Clear company, but I think it's really important that across the industry and across this sector, we're working with experts to focus on our processes and say, are those really going to bring us the widest pool of talent? And I think there's a really great opportunity for us as a sector in the coming year. So a cross-government initiative driving the Year of Engineering gives us the opportunity to actually join up across this sector and really push the message about the careers that are available within the sector and bring that under one banner for a whole year. So grasping an opportunity like that, I think, is really important. Then it's about developing our talent internally. So fantastic, we've got to bring more people into the organisation, whether that's early talent or through a recruitment and our general attraction. But we've got to really focus hard on talent assessment and succession planning within our own organisations, and then developing the right people to create space for that early talent coming through to fill those gaps so that their careers can progress, or to create space for new talent from outside of the sector to fulfill roles for us. So we have been developing our Rhodes Academy, which is a leadership academy for the sector. It's driven by HE, but it's a cross-sector academy with a number of our supply chain as members. And this year we've added a number of new programs to it. So we've got a whole leadership pathway from first-line leadership through to senior leadership in the Rhodes sector, with some really rigorous academic challenges in that program, but also some really great experiential learning for people. So it's quite different in terms of the approach and the design, and getting the right talent into those programs can accelerate their careers and give us gaps to fill with our talent coming through our early talent pipeline. So I think all of that is great. We're doing all of that process as stuff to draw people towards us, to develop them, to assess talent. But I think one thing that I've not really heard much of over the last 2 days, in the context of skills and development and capacity and capability, is learning innovation. And I've heard a lot of presentations recently where people talk about the world changing. Well, I think the world has changed, and we all know that. And this isn't just about our digital natives coming into the industry. This is about all of our employees. So I think about my father-in-law, Jeff, is 81. He's teaching himself new skills on YouTube every day. He's on social media. He sends more emojis than I do. He's very technically savvy, very digitally savvy at 81. And I think everybody's expectations in the workforce, not just that early talent, has changed. And we need to really push the innovation and the exciting things that are going on from a digital perspective across the industry in how we attract talent in, but then also how we develop talent once we have them. A few stats, most of these about the digital natives, but I think they hammer home that point that 72% of people now prefer to get answers from a website than a call center. That's society changing its approach. 43 times digital natives check their phone a day. I think I do double that, so I think that stat's probably higher. And a key one for me is 2 to 3 years. That's the expectation of new starters coming into our organizations, of how long they will spend with us before they leave. So I think we've really got to focus, if we want to draw more talent in from a wider base, on publicizing real career experiences rather than trying to push careers for life, because that's not what our talent outside of our organizations or our sector is saying that it wants. And then when it comes to learning, we all know from our own careers that as much as 95% of learning happens outside of the traditional training environment. There's plenty of stats out there that show about the return on investment from training and how much retention of knowledge is kept over the period after training. I think learning isn't keeping up with the pace of change in the workplace from a technology point of view, and we have to focus on that innovation in learning. This slide, I won't go through each of these, but there are a few examples from one of our learning partners of how they innovate in learning environments, from simulation, gamification, etc. But I've actually seen lots of examples as I've walked around over the last 2 days of that happening. And I hear quite a lot of examples from our own business and our supply chain, where we're doing things like, for example, we've got a driving simulator here over these 2 days, which is taking out 4,000 days of training effort and a significant amount of cost, but improving the training experience for a significant part of our workforce. And I've heard examples of us using VR and simulation on site to work through significant issues in a safe environment before we apply those in the physical environment. So more and more, we need to bring this innovation into how we are learning and developing our talent. I think the last point I'd leave us with is that that's really key, that we're bringing that innovation into how we learn, and it's a part of closing that capacity gap. We're not going to solve the whole problem just by attracting more people, developing more skills. We have to start to work more efficiently, more effectively as a sector, not just in learning, but in all of our processes and practices. And that will bring that capacity and capability gap down to a lower level and maybe a more achievable one.